Everybody's ad account breaks. Everybody's business breaks at some point when everything goes wrong. Today on the show, I'm going to tell you about what I do to triage what is wrong, how to communicate about it with team members and clients, and ultimately how to fix it as fast as possible. All right, I'd be lying to you if I tried to tell you that this is not based on recent experience. It's a really strange thing right now. I'm recording in the beginning of July. I've had some brands in June I had one brand who had its best month ever in a non-holiday month. And I have another brand who it was just like a month-long fire and a disaster. And I'm just going to tell you up front, the owner of that brand is very likely to listen to or watch this podcast. And I have no problem with that because I have spoken clearly about all of these things to that business operator. And I'm going to be really honest with you about about how we have gone about fixing a broken ad account and returning some stability to that ad account and what we're kind of still doing about it, because it's been a really interesting process. I mean, this happens for everybody. At some point, you are humming along, working on your meta stuff, and something changes. Your strategy overhauls because of some financial reason. You just find ads are just not working. Media buying goes haywire. Something happens, and all of a sudden, all the attention of the organization goes to meta, because no matter how much you're diversified from meta, like, it's probably driving a really significant portion of your revenue. For a lot of brands, it's driving overwhelmingly the top proportion of their new customer acquisition and of their revenue. And so we had a situation recently where, in the midst of a lot of changes and for a lot of reasons, our ad account was on fire. And it just was a huge amount of my effort in the last bunch of weeks. And I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on how I approach problem solving that, especially now that I really do see ourselves as on the other side of that, because while we're not quite yet to where we really want to get going to, we are really stabilized and no longer in sort of the true danger zone that we were in before. So let's talk about this. I have, I think, 8 steps that are going to be a combination of what to do in a broken ad account, what to do when things are just not working well, and also what to do interpersonally and relationally with team members. This is a crucial part of it. I'm coming at this from the side of an agency, but this would be true if you were brand side as well, or maybe if you are an agency or freelance person, there's some stuff that would be uniquely helpful to you here. So number one, when your ad account breaks, and what I mean by that is, like, suddenly your performance just is way worse than it previously was, or for whatever reason, you realize you need to overhaul your strategy. And I've seen this happen a lot of times where people make financial assumptions about their businesses that turn out to not be true, and then you have to make changes, or you change your media buying approach and something isn't working or whatever. So there's a lot of reasons this happens, but for some reason or another, performance gets meaningfully worse than before. And the very first thing you have to do when you see this happen is eliminate technical issues. That is job number one. And by technical issues, I mean a number of different things. The first is like a broken data set. I've seen this happen recently with brands where, like, something happens with their pixel that breaks, and either, like, it's a short-term problem where you can't really do much about it, or it's a longer-term problem where it's like a fundamental change to the way Meta does things. Think about, like, iOS 14.5, right? When that happened, right, there was a fundamental pixel-level issue, and job number one was to solve that as best as you could. Now, in iOS 14.5, you couldn't do much about it immediately. It was really hard to figure out, but having awareness of that problem was a really important step to solving it. Now, what I'm thinking of is, like, somebody sometimes will install something on your site, like add an app to do something, and it breaks all of your tracking. And if that happens, you need to know about it. Or somebody overhauls, goes live with a new site, and it breaks all of your tracking. Like, whatever it is, the health and wellness designation right now is a big part of this conversation, where people are saying, like, is this breaking things? Whatever it is, that is the first thing you need to solve. Is if there is a technical issue, if there's a data issue, you've got to solve that first. Because if Meta is not getting data back that it needs to optimize for purchase, it is not going to work. The whole thing breaks at that point if it cannot properly conversion optimize. And I'll tell you, in this process, for this particular client, this is an area where I am not sure whether or not we had any broken pixel issues along this path. Now, we're doing all kinds of things to solve that over the longer term, and with the stabilization that we have now, I don't think we have, like, something deeply, deeply fundamentally broken. Okay, but I am not technical. I'm just not. And so these are the kinds of issues that I am too slow to to be aggressive about. I need to be more aggressive about these kinds of things. And I realize about this myself because it's outside of my core knowledge base. So when I go to try to solve problems, I try to solve them within the things that I know best. And because I'm not very technical, that doesn't include data set issues and pixel issues, right? So so that is like the first thing. And increasingly is like becoming SOP at AJF Growth, where we're going, okay, if something looks really wrong, check the reporting, check the data set, make sure that is fixed first. Okay. And that has to be like an SOP style reminder to myself, because it's not an instinct that I have. And for other people like me, I think you need to get serious about that as well. That's actually one of my biggest takeaways from this whole process is like, do more work more aggressively to eliminate this. I'm going to talk more about that concept in a little bit, but to make sure that is not the fundamental problem. Okay. Similarly, a meta overspend is an issue. Like if you see suddenly that performance is getting meaningfully worse and spend is aggressive, like you might be in a meta overspend moment. You need to go solve that right away. That's just where you should just be really aggressive about killing campaigns, etc. That's like a very moment to moment thing. A broken website is very similar to this. This definitely happens where somebody makes a change on the website, somebody installs a piece of software, it screws everything up, and you're like, your ad account looks bad kind of for the day. And my instinct is to be a little bit slow, actually, to overreact because of some reasons I'm going to talk about later. But anytime you see performance that looks out of keeping with your historical norms, if that looks, not like it's just a small sample size thing, and again, I'm going to have more to say about that in a second, then you need to go eliminate that right away. It may or may not be the problem, but you need to know for sure that it's not the problem. This is like a drop everything, everybody quit what they're doing, go try and buy something on the website and make sure it worked. Go check that the pixel is firing. Like if checkout is broken, that's like something you need to know. Those are the kind of things where you just need to rally everybody and make sure that if you have problems in your ad account, that is not the problem. Because if it is, it's a big one. Another thing to watch out for, by the way, is manual mistakes in your ad account. Like somebody set the wrong optimization or attribution setting. You included view attribution when you normally don't, or you don't include it when you normally do. You set the wrong budget. You set the wrong bid. Bid is a hidden one. That's down at the ad set level. Maybe you're looking at the campaign level. You need to go through and check all the manual things. And so the point of all of those is that at the technical level, at the data level, at the website level, job number one, anytime you see your meta account is broken, is eliminate those things first. Make sure that those are not the source of your troubles. If they are, you need to act quickly and solve them quickly. And in fact, these are the best kind of problems because they are, if they can be solved, if it's not like iOS 14.5, if they can be solved, typically it means you don't have any core strategic problems. You just have like a technical issue that needs to get worked on. Okay. This is why recently we have moved to a new data set installation partner who I just trust a lot because I am not technical. And I don't mind saying it. I'm not being paid by them. In fact, I said no to a referral deal for them because I want to pile up some more wins first. And I want to be above board here, but we've started working with Elevar because especially because not only are they just sort of like known best in class for data set installations and for good tracking for Meta, but also because I need somebody who I can call when something breaks, who I trust. And because it's not me. And especially if you're like me and you're not technical, having that person on hand, I've just found over and over and again, things come up. And so having somebody like that is really important. Okay. Number two, in that case, you need to watch out for small sample volatility. Some of you think your ad account is broken, and it's not. It is simply a matter of small sample size, volatility, and that is it. Okay. I actually recorded a podcast episode recently called Meta Ads Are Not Volatile. You only think they are. And the basic point is that almost everybody overreacts to small sample size with Meta, especially the more campaigns and less purchases you have per campaign. Listen, if you're spending less than $1,000 per day, you are, let's call it less than $2,000 per day, you are going to see a wide range of outcomes daily with your purchase behavior. Like it is not because something is necessarily broken that your RoAS goes from 1 to 1.5 to 2 to 1.5 to 2 to 2.5 to 1.5 to 1 day over day over day over day, right? I just made those numbers up, but you get the idea, right? That's not because something is broken. That's because the smaller the sample size you're working in, the more the wider the range of potential outcomes. Small sample size noise is something you must deeply understand if you are going to run ads on Meta, especially if you're not spending that much money yet. This becomes less and less of a problem the more money you're spending because sample sizes get a lot bigger, a lot faster. But if you are not spending huge amounts of money on Meta, you have just got to get comfortable with daily volatility. I've said before, I actually resisted doing daily reporting for my clients sort of in Slack saying, here's what yesterday's data was, because you manage what you measure. And if you measure daily outcomes, you're going to respond to daily outcomes. And sometimes that's really helpful, again, especially if you're bigger and you're less volatile. And there's times, and so we do it, right? We have done this, but I just know there is this thing where people overreact to small sample sizes and small sets of data. And it's, you just have to keep reminding yourself. And I do this as a media buyer. Like I'll end up, just everything in me wants to go raise a bid cap because something is working well, or because the AOV looks a little bigger that day or something like that. Like, there's just all of those things. It's really hard to resist the temptation to go, you have a bias towards action. And so, yeah, so that is another part of this. Internalize the reality of small sample size volatility. It's very possible that nothing is broken when you think everything is broken. You're just dealing with small sample sizes. And if you flip a coin a few enough times, the example I gave in the other podcast that somebody else came up with that I loved so much, if you roll a 20-sided die, there's a 5% chance it lands on any given number, but the actual range of number outcomes when you do that is actually really, really wide. So you're not going to get 5% all the time. Okay. All right. The more dice rolls you have, the more likely that number is going to come at 5%. But with not that many dice rolls, there's a wide range of outcomes. Okay. Number 3, assuming you've eliminated technical issues, assuming that you have watched out for small sample volatility and that you really are struggling. Okay. And by the way, problems are harder to see if you're in small sample sizes because you might just think it's volatility, but it's not. Okay. Number 3, next, and this is so important, assume you are the problem. Assume you are the problem. Just there, with technical issues, broken websites, etc., and small sample size volatility, we have now eliminated most of the things that are outside of our control. And the behavior you must have, the response you must have at some point in the process is to assume that your strategy, your media buying, your creative approach, something like that is the problem. Generally, the technical stuff is actually not the issue. Most times there are not technical problems, okay? Most times, in fact, the issue for most accounts, most of the time, is you. There is mostly not a macroeconomic thing weighing you down. If it's happening, it happens slowly over time, not all at once. If there's a macroeconomic issue, guess what? You can't control it. So recognize it. Contextualize your performance relative to that. But boy, it's really hard to know how much macroeconomics are affecting your business. I heard a lot of people talk about how bad June was for their brands. And like I told you, I had one brand that just had the best month they've ever had in their entire 7-year history or something like that. That was not in November or December. Okay. So, and they're an extremely holiday brand. So like, yeah, macroeconomic factors are issues, but like for that brand, it wasn't last month. And so now, again, I'm not trying to pretend that macroeconomic things are not real. They are real. They're very real, but you can't control them. And so you have to just behave within the things you can control and manage your next dollar spent best. Okay. So if you assume that you are the problem, this actually has a surprising effect, which is that it increases your agency and the ability to problem solve. Okay. If you assume that you are the problem in some way or that you have to fix it, then now it allows you to put the ball back in your hands and say, okay, my job as a media buyer, internally at a brand, as a freelancer, as an agency, as an operator, whatever it is, my job is to generate the best possible outcomes I can for this brand. And so how am I going to do that given the things that I know in front of me right now? If you are not using RICHPANEL for your customer service software, what are you even doing at this point? The very simple reason to do it and to get on a call with them and check it out for yourself right now is this. They guarantee 30% savings if you're switching from Cordless or Zendesk. Just right there, like just guaranteed 30% savings. And they also say they will get the transition done for you in 2 weeks. They know you do not have time to waste. So it will be a very low friction switch to a piece of software that saves you money and that your customer service team will love, in part because they also guarantee a 30% ticket reduction from customer service tickets when you switch to RICHPANEL. That's because their self-help portal for your customers on your website is extremely good and much easier and faster than the vast majority of like customer self-help centers on websites. And so you should be looking at RICHPANEL right now. The very simple thing here is that if there's any place in your business where AI makes tons and tons of sense to smoothly and quickly and easily help your business run better and be better for customers, it is in customer service. And RICHPANEL is built with AI from the ground up. It's an AI first piece of software. It is not a legacy piece of software adding AI to their existing stuff. It is built from the ground up with AI. I also really enjoyed talking with their CEO because he refuses to ship products that are AI products that just aren't there yet, which is like glorious. Everybody else is constantly telling you about all the things that AI can do, and then you get them and it's just like this constant underwhelm experience. I've had the exact opposite experience with RICHPANEL. That's why my clients are using RICHPANEL. Multiple of my clients are using RICHPANEL. It's a great piece of software to run your help desk. You should be checking it out. Go to richpanel.com/AJF. That's richpanel.com/AJF. Go check it out for yourself today. I personally despise almost every tweet that says something like Meta is so bad right now. I hate it because it just sort of assumes that the problem is outside of me. And it's possible that Meta is bad right now for you. Okay. I get that. I really do. Okay. But I just don't think that is the kind of thing you should be thinking about very much. Because, if Meta is the problem, what are you going to do about it? You're going to probably keep advertising on Meta. So don't sit here and say oh, Meta's so bad right now. First of all, it's like a dataless comment. Okay. It doesn't even mean anything to anybody. Who knows what Meta is so bad right now even means, but you just can't do anything about it. And so instead do everything you can to assume that you're the problem, because there are things that are outside of your control for sure, but think about the things that are in control. Once you go from that perspective, now you can start taking action. Okay. So this is like the triage order for me. Eliminate technical issues, eliminate small sample volatility, and now assume you are the problem. And that means you go to your next set of problems and solutions. Okay. So let's talk about number four. Number four, and this is another great comment that somebody else involved in this business that I was working on last month said, which is don't spend bad money. Stop the bleeding. Okay. This is tricky because you have to spend to know if your solution is working. Okay. So you have to do that. And I have a tendency to kind of let that linger a little on the assumption that I can get more conservative with my spend over time. But actually, a lot of times the best move is to suddenly, immediately spend much less, because the worst thing you can do is just waste money. So don't waste money. Spending more money makes the problem worse if it is bad dollars, if the dollars are not creating more dollars for you. So spend less money, be more conservative with your approach, and then build back up over time. So this is going to look different in all kinds of different situations, but it really goes far in almost every business to just stop spending money. This won't work forever. At some point you have to move the inventory you have, etc. Maybe you have to run a sale, something like that. But that is really helpful when things are going really badly, to just stop losing money. Losing money is the worst thing. Okay. That's the worst part for business. It makes everything worse in your business if you have less money to play with. Everything is easier if you have more money. You have more of a cushion. You have less challenges. So losing money is bad. So stop losing money. So just act decisively to make sure that happens. Once you've recognized that things are in your control, stop losing money. Okay. So do that. Number 5. Okay. Communicate clearly. This is crucial. Anytime when an ad account breaks, this thing happens, which is people start going all over the place, and all kinds of attention goes to the ad account. Everybody is going all over the place. And one of the most important things you can do, especially if you're agency side for a brand, right? And is that you can just start doing everything you can to communicate as clearly as possible. Communicate about what the targets are, okay, in the account. So everybody's clear. Here's what success looks like. You got to have that to know if you are solving the problem or not, okay? Communicate about the frustrations that you're having, especially, again, if you're in an agency relationship. I had, in the midst of the thing that I just talked about, I had a great conversation where my client, in so many words, yelled at me on a call, okay? They didn't yell because they're not that kind of person. They just spoke really forthrightly and really directly about their level of frustration, and even separately called and expressed deeper level of frustration with the way I'd handle some things. And do you know how much of a gift that is to me as an agency partner? First of all, this client does not yell at me, right? So we've worked together for a long time. It's not the kind of client who overreacts to everything all the time. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that if you have an anger problem as an operator and you're constantly blowing up at people, it actually becomes counter-effective. It works against you, right, for the thing that you're trying to accomplish with your anger, because at some point, people are just going to be like, that's just who that person is. They're just pissed off all the time. And first of all, it'll push away really good talent, in many, many cases. But secondly, it'll also just make it so that people don't take you seriously. In this case, the client communicated their frustration extremely clearly to me, and I listened. I listened as carefully as I could to understand. I affirmed their frustration because as I thought about it from their perspective, I would be frustrated too, both for the outcomes and some of the ways that we handled some of the process, okay? And some of my mistakes along the way. And listen, you're going to make mistakes, so you just got to own them and try and solve them, okay? This is where actually having agency and recognizing where you're the problem is really important. because then you can admit the mistakes that you've made and just say, okay, if I admit the mistake, then that means I've labeled it, identified it, and now I can go solve it. It's just, you just got to know what the problem is. But the client, and if you're an operator listening to this, speaking directly and clearly with your agency partners and other vendor partners it's so much better for them and so much kinder to them actually than hedging what you are saying because you're trying to be nice. That is the worst thing you can do if you're really frustrated. What's better is to be really clear and to communicate in a way that actually expresses the truth of the situation at hand. I've been using FERMAT with my clients for a while. I love it. I think it is a great piece of software because it is the fastest, easiest way to build full, complete funnels for your customers if you are doing performance marketing at scale. It's really that simple. If you're trying to build landing pages at scale, FERMAT is an incredible piece of software. It is extremely robust landing page software that allows you as a performance marketer to make all the changes you want to make to offers, copy, imagery, like PDP style carousels, all of those kinds of things, in-cart upsells, all of the stuff you want to do to build incredible, compelling offers and move performance forward without touching the rest of the website, which is really great because touching the rest of the website is a recipe for moving slowly, for annoying people, for setting up endless testing that is inconclusive, etc. FERMAT instead allows you to move really fast and then to test your offers in their software really, really quickly, including seeing like what percentage of people who purchase are subscribing on each offer that you're running. So if you're running like a supplement business or something like that, you can see exactly how different offers are impacting that very important metric. It's just really, really well created software so that you can move quickly and easily to build true full funnels. It's really the most robust version of landing page software I've ever seen. Go to fermatcommerce.com/AF, fermatcommerce.com/AF, and start building better funnels for your customers to have better experiences on what is also the by far fastest loading piece of landing page software I've ever seen. Like, it is lightning fast to go from ad to lander, and that's going to be a better experience for your customers too. fermatcommerce.com/AF to get started today. It really goes far. When people do this well, again, especially if they're not an explosive person, really helps. And then back and forth, another critical part of the communication in all these things, when the business is really struggling, whether it's an ad account or something else, is to communicate clearly about next steps. Okay. So this is one of the things that I did back in the situation was I said, I worked with the partner, my brand partner who I was working with. Okay. And I said, okay, here's what I think we should do next. He said, here's what I think I should do next. Okay. And as the two of us discussed it, right, we identified a few clear next steps, and we either have already executed those, or in the midst of it, or are about to execute those in the order that we talked about. We have a clear way of doing things, and that I think is a critical part of how we kind of are getting through this to the other side of it. Okay, so communicate clearly about next steps, communicate clearly about frustration levels, communicate respectfully but clearly about these things, communicate about targets. When you get that, now you've got two people working together, expressing whatever frustration needs to be expressed, being humans with one another, and creating a series of next steps. That really, really helps. Okay. As you do that about communicating next steps, this gets to number 6, which is you need to eliminate options. You need to eliminate problems. If things have suddenly gotten worse or steadily gotten worse or something, right? One of the most important things you can do, even before you identify what the problem is to identify what the problem isn't. If you can identify what the problem isn't, you can take some things off the list and direct your energies towards the best place. Because in this situation, people are going to put a lot of energy towards things, and everybody has limited time, limited scope, and it's possible the frustrations get high. When that happens, the most important thing is that you put your energy towards the highest likelihood problems, okay? The highest likelihood, the things that are actually creating the impact on the situation. And so finding ways to eliminate with careful, rational decisions really helps. And here's what I have in mind, right? Like, if you think the offer is the problem, you need to test that methodically. The mistake to make is to launch a split test and then make a decision after 20 purchases come through, because you're like, oh, it's 13 on one side, 7 on the other. That result's probably going to hold. Now, you have not gotten far enough because you've been impatient. You need to actually know much better if that's the case. If you think your bidding method is the problem, you need to be ready to duplicate your campaign, change your bidding method, and then have enough spend. And I would predetermine a spend and amount of time at which you will make a yes or no decision on whether or not that is the issue. But the thing you don't want to do is spend $500, see the results look good or bad, and then make a decision. Now that works a little bit against like stop the bleeding, stop the spending, but that's okay. In this case, you're spending money with a clear determination of an outcome, not just sort of slowly bleeding out dollars endlessly. Because that's what happens if you don't behave in a way that creates meticulous problem solving outcomes. What happens is that you end up instead going like, okay, I don't know if this actually worked, and now you're just spending and spending and spending, etc. So whatever you think the problem is, you need to find a way to think like a scientist here, like generate a hypothesis, try to falsify your hypothesis, okay, in some way, or design an experiment to do this, and as best as you can, granting that you're not actually a scientist and you're not going to control this in a lab, okay, find a way to either verify or falsify that, and actually falsifying it, coming up with the answer that this is not the problem is as important as coming up with what the problem is in a lot of cases, or what the solution is in a lot of cases, because then you can move your energy to the next thing. Okay, you need to get meticulous and you need to know what's happening. This requires keeping a cool head as you do that. Okay. Speaking of, number 7, remain calm. Okay. As you do these things, this fits with communicate clearly, but like behaving reactively and indecisively and slowly, okay, or behaving indecisively and with strong reactions, but then just chasing a million things down really, really hurts. If irrational responses to this are like half doing tests, like I said, another irrational response is to stop everything else you're doing in the business and focus only on this. Depending on the scope of the problem, if it's a smaller level of problem, then you really want to avoid this. Actually, something McCoy Merkley talked about in an interview I did with him a while back, the CMO at Portland Leather Goods, 9-figure e-commerce business. Like McCoy said something that I thought was really insightful. He said, when accounts, they're $100 million in revenue, like they have seen accounts break over time, right? Or like ad spend go poorly. It just is part of the journey of getting to that much revenue. It happens and it's going to happen again, etc. And McCoy said at some point he realized like everybody's attention goes to the ad account when that happens, when in fact, if they just continued to work on their retention, they would actually solve the problem at a more fundamental level, because retention is actually the highest margin revenue in the business, and revenue or profit really solves every problem. Okay. So by making sure to not divert their attention from those things, if the problem wasn't a true fire, okay, then that allowed them to do that. Now, in the situation that I was in most recently, it was a pretty true fire. And so we really needed to put a lot of attention very fast into solving it. It was too important to the business. But over more time, what will slowly happen in this business, because we're already talking about it, so I can tell you, is that attention will shift back towards, okay, how do we improve our retention? How do we make this better so that the value in the business is better? How do we keep developing products that are great, doing great product releases, et cetera, to make it so that we have a stabler business across the board, okay? So remain calm. You may need to launch a sale at some point to help with your business's issues, but like, or if you have like a real slowdown on the ad account, like that definitely happens. Brands need cash at times, okay? But like, don't do it thoughtlessly just because you are reacting, okay? And another mistake I see people make is they overinterpret they have recency bias in their forecasting. So they suddenly will think this is what it's going to be like forever. You could have years of data saying that the account behaves a certain way, and suddenly you'll look past all of that because the last week or two is bad, okay? Like, probably not. Probably your business didn't just overnight get much worse. Probably your larger set of data says something about the future likelihood of the business, and you should weigh all of that together. This is how calmness looks in the business, okay? In a lot of ways, that's what a lot of this is about. Eliminating the problems that are not it, aiming at the solutions with the belief that you can solve them, and doing all of that in a way that is rational and determined and calm. Again, especially if you're agency side, I'm just going to tell you, this is what your clients are looking for from you. I remember Taylor Holiday said this to me a long time ago, and I don't even know if it started with him or with me saying something to him or what, but basically he said, like, a lot of times what clients are looking for is a steady hand on the wheel, and you just have to show that you are that. And that's totally right. Just to make sure that when things are getting crazy, somebody knows, okay, somebody has the wheel and they have a pathway to getting through this. That is how agencies, in fact, it's one of the ways agencies can operationalize knowledge that's unique, where they've been through so many client fires. Like, I've been 11 years in the game. I've seen a lot of client fires at this point. I'm just less flustered by them than I used to be. And again, that has at times actually caused me to underreact to them, but it does help me to just be able to stay calm. And I think that's one of the critical parts of this whole process. Okay. And lastly, one more thing, Number 8, make more creative. If you're dealing with meta ads, more creative is almost always going to be helpful and will almost always solve some amount of problems. It is very possible that the entire problem with your ad account right now is that your creative is not working anymore. Something is drained and you just need to get better at making more and better creative. It almost always helps. This is also the time to try weirder stuff than you're comfortable with. If your account is performing really poorly, get crazier. Try something with just more variation in general, so it's more variable from what you're normally running. That's really important. But try something crazy, make weirder stuff, make more stuff. Making more creative almost always helps. And one of the things I've seen in this particular account is that a lot of the creative that's working for us right now is creative that was not even in the account before this whole thing started. And as we did all that, I think it's really helped us. A lot of new creative got in the account, including very different creative than we run before, and it has really worked well. Shout out to my friends at Fireteam who have been working with me on this account and who can speak to this because some of their creative has been really helpful in this time. I think making more creative is almost always going to be helpful in your ad account. It certainly is in this situation, and that's one of the ways to do it. Quickly, let's run back through them. Eliminate technical issues. Watch out for small sample volatility. Assume you are the problem. Stop the bleeding. Don't spend bad money. Communicate clearly. Eliminate what other problems there might be. Eliminate options. Remain calm and make more creative. Those are the 8 ways that I see to triage and solve account problems. If you do that relatively meticulously, you should do, or relatively calmly and rationally, you should do well when inevitably problems come up in your ad account. That is the reminders and the reflections that I've had on this particular situation for me, and it's the reflections that I would pass along to you. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode. I hope you liked it. You should subscribe if you did like it. Subscribe if you're watching or listening to it. I think if you like this episode, you will like most of my content. It is along these lines all the time, making content about how to run ad accounts, how to run e-commerce businesses, grow them profitably. You should also subscribe to my email list, ajfgrowth.com, to get everything that I am doing, including the email list. And a big thanks to my friends at RICHPANEL and FERMAT. Great sponsors, both of them, whose products my clients and I actually use. So go check those out. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I will see you next time.